I hope that people enjoy The Viennese Girl for several reasons, really. One is that it is a true story, or at least it's based on a true story, even though it's a fictionalised account. These were real people, and many of these events really did happen. It's a Romeo and Juliet love story in a way, because it's about two people on completely opposite sides of this chasm. And it is a story of love conquering the most extraordinary odds. But it's also quite a tense story because it was a very dangerous time, and the people involved in hiding Hedy and keeping her alive during the last 18 months of the war, which was her boyfriend, the German officer, and her friend Dorothea. All of them were involved in something which, had they been caught, they would almost certainly have been sent to prison, possibly deported, and in Hedy's case, would certainly have died. Any of them could have lost their lives as a result of the courageous actions that they took. So there's a lot of tension in the story as well. It's not just a love story. I'd like to read you a little bit from the very start of the book, which is when the Channel Islands were first invaded in 1940. The sun's heat had begun to mellow, and the gulls were cruising for their final catch of the day when the siren sounded. Its wail climbed and fell, calling out over the jumbled slate roofs and church spires of the town, and across the patchwork of potato fields beyond. In St. Aubyn's Bay, where the waves lapped and fizzed on the sand, its warning reached Hedy's ears as she lay dozing by the sea wall, and woke her with a jolt. Rising in slow motion, she scanned the sky. Now she could also hear a faint, tinny whine in the east. She tried to steady her breathing. Perhaps it was another false alarm. These warnings had become a daily event these past 2 weeks, each time the reconnaissance planes merely circling, then disappearing back out to sea with cameras crammed full of blurry images of main roads and harbour walls. But this time something was different. The engine sound contained a note of brutish intent, and now several tiny black dots were emerging in the distant blue. The whine became a hum, and the hum a strident drone. Then she knew. This was no reconnaissance mission. This was the start. For days now, the islanders had watched the black smoke rise and mushroom on the French coast, felt the vibration of the distant blasts pulse through their bellies and rattle their bones. Women had spent hours counting and recounting the tinned food in their larders, while the men squashed into banks to withdraw the family savings. Children had yelled their complaints as gas masks were forced over their heads. By then, all hope had vanished. There was no one here to deter the aggressors, nothing between them and their shimmering prize, but flat blue water and an empty sky. And now the planes were on their way. Hedy could see them clearly now, still some distance away, but from the outline she guessed they were Stukas, dive bombers.